Yeah, yeah. Yeah, shark in the gun, got the knowledge for the college. Football show breaks down the odds of scholars. 3-unit bangers, stacking cheddar like flowers. Ride the wave, the fame flex in the midnight hours. 9 words of lifestyle, spitting flames, no pity. Dominate the board like kings, ruling the city. Sports, gamble, and hustle, money moves so gritty. Cashing tickets every Friday, life looking pretty. Ride the wave, feel the rush, hit your dame. Shark in the gun, setting fire to the name. 3-unit banging, stacking chips, no shame. Friday night sports kings claiming that fame. Analyze stats, break bread, no sweat. 3-point spreads, risk life, major bet. Cash in pockets, feel.
On a suddenly not so casual Friday in September, it is CFB Knowledge for College Week 3, the Shark and the Gun, Friday, September 13th, 2024, right here live on Sharky Waters Nation. Come on over to YouTube, join the chat. We are fired up to commence upward movement in our sample. Guns Picks, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, just like the Shark said, just get into the chat. You don't even have to talk about the play. Just tell me what you're drinking, what you're smoking, what you're eating tonight here on this beautiful Friday night. But college football week 6 is among us. We are on the precipice of an electric slate here, and it's a lot of sandwich action, especially with the slate. Not the greatest in the world as far as the matchups, but there are plenty of opportunities to make some cash on this one. I'm ready to rock this one, Shark. Let's get it.
12 o'clock, week 3, Saturday, September the 14th. Going to going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, the home team. The Gun has the hat on. We talked about buy hats years ago. The Gun went to the thrift store and found a real throwback one. He's wearing it tonight, the first official of the broadcast. High noon, Tulsa, plus 20.5.
Yeah, I haven't put this one on in a while, and I am glad I can rock the blue here today. Oklahoma State going on the road to go play Tulsa. Chapman Stadium, Tulsa, Oklahoma. 12 p.m. is the kick. When we look at these two teams, you got Oklahoma State coming off a come-from-behind win in overtime. Highs of highs game. Arkansas beating them 39-31. Got some covers for some people. Depends on when you got the line on that one. Down 21-7 at one point in the third quarter, but still got the win. But Tulsa coming off a close loss versus Arkansas State 28-24. Tight matchup. But they were pretty much dead even as far as the yardage was concerned. Now, Oklahoma State won by 8 last week. However, when we break down the box score, minus 263 net yards for the game. That is absolutely egregious. You're not supposed to win games with those numbers. And when we break down, I just basically looked at the second half and how Arkansas basically gave the game to Oklahoma State. Arkansas had the ball in scoring territory 6 times. That's right, 6 times. And the result of those drives were fumbled, missed field goal, turnover on downs, touchdown, field goal. And then in overtime, Arkansas missed a field goal, then turnover downs, which was the result of the game. On the other side, Oklahoma State scored all but every single possession but one in the second half. So that is how they got into the tie and then absolutely winning the game. Oklahoma State's defense has been a liability so far this season. They're giving up 4.9 yards per carry to their opponents so far, 340 yards per game in the passing. And that was against teams like South Dakota State and Arkansas. All right. So even though Tulsa is not going to light up the scoreboard as far as the offense is concerned, this is going to be a concerning factor in a lot of games there with the Cowboys. When you look at Tulsa, good rushing offense, 6.7 yards per carry on the ground this season. They have a good quarterback too, Kurt Francis. And while, like I said, doesn't light up the scoreboard, but he doesn't make mistakes either. He has a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio so far this year. And then you have the situation for Oklahoma State. Mega sandwich here, because what is up on deck? Back-to-back ranked opponents in Utah and Kansas State. So they are looking ahead. They are not looking at this game. It's a perfect spot there for Tulsa. Also, Tulsa 13-5-1 ATS as a dog of 20 points or more. Granted, I got the line at 20.5. The line is still dropping on this one, but I think Oklahoma State will be looking ahead here versus with big opponents at home and a road game after that. And then they got to go to the road against Tulsa, of all teams, they're not going to be prepared for this one. They're trying to keep the book close to their vest when they got big opponents coming on deck. And I'm seeing this line sitting here at 18. I think Tulsa keeps it close within 2 scores at worst. So I'm going to be going with Tulsa plus 20.5. That's the line I got. You can still take it at 18, and that is the play for me.
I love it. Trap spots galore as teams are looking ahead to conference season. Week 3, oftentimes the last out-of-conference game before conference season. Speaking of conference season, we're going Pac-12 football here, and we're going to Corvallis, a place and a location where we have bought the home Beavers year after year, but not this year, not on Fox Sports at 3:30 Eastern, taking the Oregon Ducks in the first half, minus 9.5, 1 unit. This is an Oregon team that has national championship aspirations, that has been certifiably terrible the first 2 weeks at home, particularly in the first half. Laid a complete egg in week 1 to Idaho, 14-0. Could have been 35. Mistakes everywhere. And it got worse last week against Boise State, a game they almost lost outright. Mistakes, as I said, tons of penalties. Just a disgusting display of football. But Guns and I were discussing this before we came live on the air. This is where you want to buy this team. Every year they lay a couple just disgusting efforts on the field, and right when people say they're terrible, they turn up, and they will be turned up in this in-state rivalry game. And a real key point on the environment here, Corvallis is a brutal stadium to travel to if we're going into October and November, but this is September 14th. It's going to be warm out. It's a noon kick. It's not a primetime kick. The times you don't want to travel up there are in November at night in the rain. Oregon has a highly advantageous schedule spot here, and the line does correlate. Minus 9.5, a heavy split in the first half on a 16.5 game. And final point on the game, this is not the Beavers of yesteryear. This is the Beavers with Giovanni McCoy, a transfer from FCS Idaho at the starting quarterback position. They have not performed well in the first 2 weeks in the first half. This is where you want to buy Heisman hopeful Dylan Gabriel and a fast-paced Oregon Ducks offense to really turn up their quality and come out and light up in-state rival Oregon State. First play for me on this broadcast, minus 9.5 Oregon in the first half. Going back to the gun, 3:30 p.m. Speaking of trap games, out-of-conference games, look-ahead games, Oklahoma also, fading Oklahoma as well. Tulane on the road, plus 14.
Yeah, you can see a trend what I'm doing here this week. Granted, like I said, the slate is kind of weak as far as ranked versus ranked opponents. We do have one tonight, but you have to pick these situations knowing that there's upcoming games with these big teams, and they overlook the opponent they're playing against because they're deemed remedial. We have another situation here with Tulane versus Oklahoma, Memorial Stadium, Norman, Oklahoma. 3:30 p.m. is the kick on this one. Listen, Tulane coming off a tough loss. They controlled that game for most. If you watch that game versus Kansas State, they had full control, but let them off the hook. 37-27 loss. Winning the net yardage battle, but -2 turnover ratio. Granted, an interception in the end zone was one of those picks. Oklahoma coming off a 16-12 lackluster win versus Houston last week. Only putting up 249 yards of total offense, 75 yards rushing, and -69 net yard average for the game. Tulane has a great offense, putting up 491 yards of total offense last week versus Kansas State, 342 yards passing. They have a great quarterback in Darian Menza, 29 for 41, 70.7 pass completion rate last week, 13.3 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns and 1 INT. We thought Michael Pratt was the god, but we may have to revert and give the crown to Menza there at Tulane. Oklahoma's success so far is based on their ability to create turnovers, +6 turnover ratio versus Temple. Granted, Temple is one of the worst teams in college football. +1 turnover ratio versus Houston. So I think this defense gives up yards, gives up scores, but if you can take care of the football, because they're an opportunistic defense, you can beat this Oklahoma team. Their rush defense is absolutely not great either. Houston, but they allowed Houston to pass for 260 yards in that game, 24 for 28. So not only in the rush defense, but in the pass defense, they're a little bit struggling. I'm not high on this Oklahoma Sooners defense. Also, like I said, it could be an overlooked spot here for Oklahoma in this big game, because guess who they have up on deck at home in Norman, Oklahoma? The Tennessee Volunteers in their inaugural conference opener. And I think they're going to be looking at this game and not at Tulane. So in essence, really, I think this Tulane team is a lot better than people expected. Granted, they had a lot of turnover, Willie Fritz leaving, but they have a good coach in Summerall running that team. If you don't remember him, that dude was a legend there at Troy, making them a winning program. So I think there's going to be zero drop-off there for Tulane. And this line is insulting to the green. I think it's the Green Wave. I might get that wrong, but I believe it's Green Wave. Tulane, give me them all day long. I got it at +14. It is dropping. This line is at +12.5. I think this is a one-score game like it was last week. So Tulane +14 is the play.
Gun said it. It's the Green Wave. Ride the wave or get out of the water. Let's dominate. My next play, we're going backyard brawl. West Virginia, Pittsburgh. They took away this rivalry for 11 years. This is the third year back. And we're looking at a lot of information, and we're really honing in on this game as a significant regional rivalry game. And the first play I'm taking in this game is another first half play. We're taking Pitt in the first half +0.5. And the key point on this is the opposite split to where you saw a heavy proportion with Oregon as a favorite. West Virginia in this game is -2 for the game, only 0.5 for the first half. And what you're really looking at here is Pitt catching this game in Acrisure Stadium where the Steelers play. This place will be absolutely live for this young quarterback, Eli Holstein, and they will show up to where they have performed significantly better so far this year in the Pittsburgh area, having come out last week in Cincinnati incredibly flat and backdooring the game. And something you really want to buy in college football specifically is momentum. When a team comes out terribly on the road and really catches incredible momentum to backdoor win at a conference rival, that oftentimes will sustain in the first half the next week in their home stadium as the environment reverses itself from a crowd energy standpoint. And the other side of this game, we find West Virginia with their first true road game of the year, having played 2 at home. I think this is going to be kind of what we saw against Penn State in the opener. I think this is a quality opponent in Pitt. I think Pitt has a much better coach, ex-defensive coordinator from Michigan going back a decade. And I think what we saw against Penn State could actually play very similarly in this game, because I think the West Virginia coach is not the biggest energy guy in the world. And he's not the coach I would want if I'm backing West Virginia on the road in this game. And the second play we're playing here, we're playing the over at 61.5. And for those of you guys who tailed last week, I'm not going to apologize for losing wagers in statistical anomalies, because I went 0-2 on my totals last week, and the two games totaled almost 2,000 yards. And sometimes in college football, even more specifically than professional football, these players will accumulate yards and just not score in the red zone. A lot of 4 and outs in plus territory. And of course, college kickers perpetually notorious for missing kicks. So we're staying the course with the idea and taking over 61.5 between two teams that did go under prior. And you really start to go through this matchup. As I mentioned, this is the third straight year this matchup is back. Year one in 2022, it did go significantly over, 38-31 on a 50.5. Last year, September 16, 2023, books moved the line down to 47.5, and it went significantly under 17-6. Key point in that game, West Virginia quarterback Garrett Green injured. And as I mentioned, Eli Holstein, true freshman quarterback, still in high school. So now you go way under on a 47.5. You come all the way up to 61.5. And you see two defenses that are not defending at all. Pitt in their 2 games this year has 2 games with 779 yards and 947 yards. And West Virginia has 2 games with 703 yards and 927 total yards. You're going to see a lot of points in this game. You're going to see a motivated home team in the first half. 2 officials, Pitt in the first half, plus a half, and over 61.5. First collaboration play of this show, 4 o'clock, down in the Carolinas, Greenville, North Carolina, to be exact. The Gun with an official on the game. I have the first half. Gun's picks, ECU plus 100 on the money line, an official.
Yeah, we got to get rid of the Tulsa hat, even though it makes my head look pretty. We're going to be jumping on the pirate ship, baby. ECU is a team that, listen, if you saw my preview on the Guns Picks channel, I'm very high on ECU. I think this team goes over their win total. I think this team has been fixed. I think this is an underrated program, especially on the defensive end and the offensive end. I'll get to that in a second, but we got App State coming off an egregious loss, 66-20 versus Clemson, getting smoked in every which direction, 35-0 at one point in the first quarter, minus 349 net yards for the game, minus 2 turnover ratio, all sorts of bad for Appalachian State. But you have an ECU team coming into this game 2-0 on the year, but they have played some bad opponents, but still, they did their job with a plus 286 net yard average on the year, playing Norfolk State and ODU. What is ECU's strength, basically? I can tell you that here. Last few seasons, it's been their defense. And it shows that this team, with the experience that they have coming back, they're getting better. 201 yards of total offense given up to their opponents so far this season, 2.1 yards per carry on the ground, 132 yards per game in the passing game. Granted, like I said, lackluster opponents on this one, but they're playing an App State team that they're going to be highly motivated for. App State's offense is more focused on the run, 5.5 yards per carry like they have been in the past. Only with Joey Aguilar really has been struggling on this one, 50% pass completion rate on the year. And I think what this does is it plays into what ECU wants you to do. They want you to run the football. These two teams did meet in 2023. App State winning the game 43-28 as 7.5-point favorites. Now you see an ECU sitting here as a 1.5-point dog at home. And I just believe that this team is going to win this game outright. Granted, the line is kind of predicating that. But you have App State. They've just struggled in these type of situations. 3-11-1 ATS is an away favorite last 4 years. 1-6 ATS is a favorite of 3 points or less last 4 seasons. And I know I'm high on ECU. I love what they did on the offensive side of the ball, getting a new OC coming over from Ole Miss that can run that air raid offense that Lane Kiffin is famous for. They got a quarterback now and Jake Garcia coming over in the transfer portal and a bevy of receivers to complement that offense. So I think they fixed the problem that was happened with this ECU team last year. Their offense was the problem, not their defense. Defense is going to get better. Their offense is going to improve. And this ECU team is going to be a problem with anyone inside their conference. And I think in this non-conference game, we're going to be riding this ECU team. So give me ECU money line plus 100 as the play.
Absolutely love it. And I'm centering on the first half. We're on the first half plus a half. And it's very similar to what I was saying about the Pittsburgh game. Significant strength in terms of the proportion and the split versus the game line. And actually, when I was looking on FanDuel earlier this afternoon, FanDuel has ECU favored in the first half minus 1.5 and a game dog plus 1.5. And you don't see this very frequently in collegiate or professional sports where a team is an underdog for the game but favored in the first half. And I think it really is just symptomatic to the energy of this game. This is a revenge game. ECU did get hammered on the road last year in this in-state rivalry up in the Appalachian Mountains. And App State really comes in here in a fairly brutal spot, in my opinion, as the Gun was detailing. This is a back-to-back road sequence, having gotten absolutely hammered at Clemson last week. Now you got to stay on the road against an upstart team with a new OC and the old coordinator from the University of Miami, the Hurricanes, Jake Garcia. They are going to be live as all hell at 3:30 or 4 o'clock here in Greenville. And then App State goes home for a conference game against South Alabama next week. So it's a look ahead. It's a road after getting your ass kicked last week against a juiced opponent with a new system and a new quarterback. And App State has been slightly better this year at home in the first half and has been absolutely a gas can on the road. And that's why the line's all over it. We love intelligence. We love lines. We love line splits. The official play for me on this one, ECU in the first half plus a half. Next play for me really quick, another first half play. We're going to Gainesville and taking Mike Elko and the boys, A&M in the first half, -2.5. Again, a numerical split, -2.5 on a -4 is a significant proportion towards the favorite in the first half of this game. And you look at what Florida's been doing. The only game we can really cross-reference with this game is week 1, also at home in Gainesville, against a Miami, Florida team that is similarly weighted to Texas A&M at this current point of the season. And the Hurricanes came out in Gainesville, which is historically a very hostile environment, and just obliterated the Gators. And I think this is what you're going to see, because if you look at what A&M did in week 1 against Notre Dame at home, the game was tied 6-6 at the half. A&M could have very easily covered that first half and really did melt the game down the stretch late in the fourth quarter. They did come out last week emphatically and hammer an FCS team. And this is just where they should continue upward momentum in the first half. 1-1 ATS so far, but again, pretty effective in both. And this should be correlating to the split. -2.5 on a 4 is telling you the numerical story. Books like the road favorite here, heavier in the first half, contrary to the other two plays I have. So another first half play here, 3 o'clock in Gainesville, Texas A&M on the road. First half, -2.5. Going evening football, going to the gun, Indiana on the road in California. Who would have thought we'd have this matchup going back a few years? But here you have reconstruction of conferences. It's pretty scattered geographically. It honestly doesn't make a lot of sense geographically, but this is the new age of college football in 2024. 7:30, Indiana, the Hoosiers in LA, -2.5 early week, -3 now.
Yeah, who would have thought we'd be talking about this one, but I'm going to say it one time here. Big Ten matchup here, Indiana versus UCLA, Pasadena, California, at the Rose Bowl. Whoa, Nelly, do we have ourselves a football game here? 7:30 is the kick on this one. Listen, Indiana's going to have a great year with the coach Kurt Signetti. I'll get to him in a second, but 2-0 start on the year. Their toughest opponents, though, is not the toughest opponents in the world, FIU and Western Illinois, but they took care of business, only allowing 10 points in both of those situations, plus 406 net yard average. They did what they were supposed to do as a upcoming team. UCLA is coming off a rare bye week, by the way, because they had to play a little bit early, 16-13, going over to the island to go get that victory, almost getting the L on that one versus the Rainbow Warriors. Plus 16 net yard average in the game, plus 1 turnover ratio. Indiana will ensure that this UCLA offense is one-dimensional under new coach Kurt Signetti, who is the head coach there. If you remember him, he comes over from GMU, been there for many years. He's won every single place that he's gone. Year 1, year 2, year 3, doesn't matter. He is a winner. And he's great. And what his great at is stopping the run. In the first 2 games, it really shows for this Indiana team, only allowing 1.2 yards per carry versus their opponents. And I think this will be a continuing trend for this Hoosier squad. The offense has been solid as well, running the football efficiently, 6.4 yards per carry on average this season. That's predicated on the fact that they brought over the JMU running back. A lot of JMU guys coming over from this into Indiana to go follow their coach over. UCLA's offense is not going to be good running the ball, so they will have to trust Ethan Garbers to carry this offense, which is not a good sign here for the Bruins, based on the fact that if they try to run the ball, they're going to have a lot of stops and 3 and outs. So if they're going to have to trust Ethan Garbers to go get the production for them, they're in for a long day versus these Hoosiers, especially at home. Potential look ahead spot, if you want to go look at it that way. UCLA here, as they have a trip to LSU next week, non-conference game, and then right after that they have to go play Oregon. Of course, a Pac-12, former Pac-12 rival, now Big Ten rivalry in that situation. So maybe overlooking this Indiana Hoosier team that really, I don't think the markets really value this team. So we're still buying stock into the Hoosiers right now. This is not the same Indiana team, is what I'm trying to tell you. This is JMU in Hoosier uniforms. This is a team that we've backed for years. And now we're seeing how good this coach is in Kurt Stignetti. This is a guy I wish would be the coach of Notre Dame. I would take it all day long. This is a big game for Indiana. I don't think it's a big game for UCLA. And I think UCLA being a more run-oriented offense, this plays exactly into what Indiana wants to do. So I got it at -2.5. You can still find the threes out there. I think it's leaking into 3.5 territory. So if you find that 3, buy it now, because by Saturday, when this game kicks off at 7:30 p.m. East, that line will be gone. So give me Indiana as my line, -2.5 as the play.
My final play, going nighttime football, 7 o'clock in Tennessee, Murfreesboro, I believe it is, taking a road team, Western Kentucky, in their Conference USA opener at -7. I started looking at this afternoon, and you guys know, who have watched us now for on our 4th season here, I love small market football. I think the books are less in tune with the lines. I think the talent gaps are potentially bigger. I think there's more exploitability. And when I really started to look at this, the first thing that really stood out to me is just how unimpressive Middle Tennessee State has been this year. 0-2 ATS, got blown out last week on the road at Ole Miss, 52-3. Let that be what it is. But I think more disturbing for the Blue Raiders here, 32-25 win in week 1 at home against Tennessee Tech. I'm not from Tennessee, but I bet if Guns and I were down there having beers in Tennessee, people would tell us that school's about building cars, bikes, and studying science, not playing FBS quality football. And they almost beat Middle Tennessee State, save for a late Blue Raider touchdown, 32-25. That made my eyes light up. Go to the other side of this. Western Kentucky also got shellacked by an SEC opponent early season this year in week 1, 63-0 against Alabama. Let that be what it is. But they did take care of Eastern Kentucky last week, 31-0, which I think is important to cover a significant line, -18.5. And you really start to go through this matchup. This is a matchup that is showing significant continued program separation in terms of the quality over the last 5 years. Western Kentucky has won 5 straight matchups between these two teams. And last year, the quarterback was actually Austin Reed, the quarterback who you guys saw on Hard Knocks, who was the 3rd stringer for the Chicago Bears. But the last 5 wins, 5 points, 3 points, 27 points, 18 points, 21 points. So you guys see what I'm saying. Western Kentucky is gaining significant sustained momentum and separation from two teams that at one point were playing close games. And now Western Kentucky comes back with quarterback TJ Finley, who played last year for Texas State and prior was an SEC recruit and played minimally for Auburn a couple years ago. And the line is telling us a heavy story. Week 5 last year, it was Thursday night. Western Kentucky did beat them at home 31-10. Key point on the line, home game -6.5. This opened at -8.5 on the road. If this was coming in revenge, motivation, any sort of quality for the home team, this line should be moving towards Middle Tennessee State, not the road team, to continue upward momentum. I have Western Kentucky to win this game on average by 14 points. An official play, Western Kentucky -7. A lot of comments in the chat. A lot of people, I think, betting right now. 7:30 Eastern. Obviously, the first game just kicked off. Another big one coming at 8 o'clock. We're excited for that. Guns picks. Any comments on the games tonight? Arizona at K-State, or what's going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, if this game's going to tip off in 30 minutes on this one. I'm on K-State -7 in that game. I think K-State probably got their ass chewed of how they performed versus Tulane in that game last week. Granted, it was a road game, so tough little situation to play there in the Bayou. But Arizona is not a team that I'm high on all year. They have two weapons. They have Noah Fafita and they have their wide receiver McMillan. Those are the guys that stayed with the team, didn't go over with Jed Fish over to Washington. Then you have a Kansas State team. I was like, if you want to go beat Arizona, run the football. And guess what Kansas State could do? They can run the football better than anybody. 9.1 yards per carry versus UT Martin. And then 6.5 yards per carry versus Tulane last week. They averaged 249 yards per game so far in their first 2 weeks, and they have an electric running back in DJ Giddens. You remember him? He was electric last year, 7.4 yards per carry in his first 2 games. And then you have an Arizona team. They showed their weaknesses against the run. Like I said, gave 5.6 yards per carry to New Mexico in their first game. So I think this defense will struggle here with this rush offense that K-State bring to the table. And their defensive line really doesn't is limited pass rushing wise. They only have 3 sacks all year, and they played G5 teams. They're going against a K-State team that, quite frankly, is going to have time in the pocket to throw the ball. But at K-State on the other side, how do you beat an Arizona team with a great quarterback and great wide receivers and that loves to pass the ball? You have to have a good pass rush, right? 4 sacks. K-State's pass rush had 4 sacks versus UT Martin, 5 sacks versus Tulane, 19.6% sack rate. So I think this is going to be one of the strengths of that defense for K-State. Granted, they gave up a lot of passing yards, being a little bit too aggressive. But I think in this game here, I think they're going to be able to get to Noah Fafita and give him fits. Also, K-State 11-2 ATS is a home favorite last 2 years. 11-4 ATS as a single-digit home favorite. 10-2 ATS as a home favorite versus conference opponents. This is a conference game. Arizona is in the Big 12 now. So, and I think Arizona is going to have their fits going on the road, their first conference game in the Big 12 since they jumped over. And they're already 0-2 ATS. They played UT Martin and Tulane. So I'm not going to be backing this Arizona team anytime soon, especially with the new coach. I just think there's going to be a growth period with this team, and we'll have to watch them down the stretch. But this is their first real, true, in my opinion, big game that they've played. Only playing New Mexico and northern Arizona. They're going to be challenged here today, and I think K-State is going to get it done here. So -7 is the play I got.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you guys who watched us last year, we appreciate you guys in the chat. I see my guy Mad Chad, Peter Gracia, what's going on, brother? Michael Buelna, a bunch of other guys up top in the chat as the gun scrolls through. Trap God Bangers will bang, as we used to intro the show with our old school intro music there. But, you know, when you really look at this Arizona team, we love Noah Fafita. We were on record calling him the GOAT comedically a little bit last year. But, I mean, last year they covered, I think, 7 or 8 straight games. Yeah. And they were beating high-level Pac-12 opponents with ease almost, like out of nowhere. I mean, I remember margin wins. But the key point here is the coach they lost more than anything. I forget the guy's first name, but his last name is Fish, and that is not the Fish who make
Jed Fish.
Jed Fish, and that is not Fish who make inaccurate, stupid wagers and bad plays constantly. That is Fisch. But this guy has an incredible pedigree. He was in the NFL for 15 or 20 years. He coached under Bill Belichick, Sean McVay, Brian Billick. He's an offensive guy, quarterbacks coach, and that's why Noah Fafita really kind of came out of nowhere, because he had a coach that was really below his pay grade with an Arizona team that had really bottomed out going into the previous few seasons. But now Jed Fish is with Washington, the Huskies, obviously the Apple Cup tomorrow, big game played at Lumen Field. First time neutral, I believe, ever.
No snow for that game either. It's another September game and one of the biggest rivalries that's been going on for decades. Some of these games are going to look very weird to me.
Absolutely. Also that 100%. It's just a wild west of college football nowadays with these restructuring points of conferences, transfer portal, coaches moving, all sorts of stuff. And obviously, you know, the schedule being totally different. But Apple Cup tomorrow up top, in the Pacific Northwest there. That should be a great game. I believe that's an afternoon game as well. We didn't really have a lean on that. Guns and I talked about that off the air in the middle of this afternoon. Short line, Wazoo has gotten dominated in this matchup, lost 9 out of the last 10. If there was ever a year they could pull it out, I think they got a running quarterback this year, younger guy, junior, but I think just noticeably younger, obviously, versus Cam Ward last couple of years. But I think this would be a Wazoo spot. Numerically, it's short, historically, versus Washington domination. But the key point, this coach, Jed Fish, is really an elite coach. And Guns was detailing the new coach for Indiana, the guy that was coaching James Madison the last few years. But these are really the type of coaches where when you go back maybe 15 or 20 years ago, and guys like Brian Kelly were skyrocketing the ranks, coming from MAC schools to Cincinnati to Notre Dame to LSU. I think these are the next couple guys. I think our coach at Indiana and Jed Fish are the next two big-time coaches that will be coaching massive Power 5 teams in coming years. And that's not to say that Washington is not a massive Power 5 team, but maybe even bigger than that at some point. So a lot of conversation there. And Football Guy 97 says, any thoughts on Bama and Wisconsin? I think some sharps like Wisconsin. I think Bama's been obviously running a very clean sheet the first 2 weeks. Not entirely sure if they can sustain that. I think there's just a perpetual question mark, at least this season and maybe next season as well. Will this team be able to sustain the success that Nick Saban created for, over a decade down there? We don't know. And we really are kind of in the dark on this. I thought the number was pretty well graded, but Guts, comments.
Yeah, listen. Remember who Alabama has on deck. Who do you think they have on deck? Georgia. That's right. So they got Georgia at home next week. This is a tough spot. I don't remember a time in my life that the Wisconsin Badgers were a double-digit dog at home. Ever. Granted, this is a different type of situation. You have a big dog team in Alabama. It's going to be a true test with a new coach, Kalen DeBar. I'm very interested. You got Jalen Milroe playing in that type of situation. Jump around is going to be thumping in the third quarter. It could be a close game. However, I lean towards total elements of this one, and I put it in the chat. I kind of lean towards the Wisconsin under on their team total. I think it's set at 17 and a half. That's one type of situation. I also like the total on the under on this one. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring affair between these two teams. I don't trust the offense for Wisconsin at all. They have their own. Tyler Van Dyke's the quarterback there now. He's had his struggles at Miami. Everybody thought that, every time that Wisconsin brings a quarterback in, seems like it never works out into their favor. We've seen it in the past. I'm not really high on the offense. However, I think this could be a slugfest defensively where if there's going to be a team that scores, I believe it's going to be on the Bama side, not on the Wisconsin side. So I like the team total under on Wisconsin. That's my lean, not an official play, and I like the total under on that one. And it's steaming in that direction right now. So I would probably grab it now before you get past those key numbers.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the conversation we're having in terms of the newfound product and learning as we go to a certain degree with all these new elements, I think one of the biggest positive things from it is these matchups we're seeing. And it's not only these historical rivalries being played in September, which I think, in my opinion, is good for the game. I mean, we've been on record more so in NFL commentary last few years saying we love Leatherhead football. We love a 10-7 game in December. But I think in college football, some of these games are better served to be played in better weather. Let the players get out and run, and just a more stylistic, a pretty style of football. So I think that's a real positive. I think seeing games like this that had never, ever been on record, historically in any context, you never seeing Bama play Wisconsin outside of a bowl game historically, right? Yeah.
And they also, I have to correct myself on that one. What I said is they do have Georgia on deck. However, they have a bye week before that. So they get an extra week of rest before they get prepared for this one. It's still in their minds. So that you don't want to give too much up. So maybe the total is a better play than it is the side. I can see, I can see a lot of situations where Wisconsin can keep this close. And then I can see a lot of situations that Alabama could be the only team that scores in this game. So yeah, side is weird. Big line, but yeah, total is probably the way I play this. Team total on Wisconsin under and the game full game total under.
Yeah, I think the point about the bye week is actually significant because they're really more so at the end of a window of energy where then they can rest. And I think oftentimes they'll just leave it all out there knowing they have that time off and then they come back in a new window. I think the bye week is really that significant where I think a lot of times people think, oh, it's only 1 week. But really for football players, it's a very big end of a window type of thing. So I think if I had to make a comment, knowing the bye week is next week, I would probably lean towards Bama and allow, as Guns mentioned, the line to tell you the story. That's not necessarily what you call, a space and value on the dog line. That's just books telling you this is potentially a hammer down spot for a Bama team that, as we said, has looked very impressive in the first couple of weeks. So we appreciate the questions, and we will get this right, as our guy Wright says. Sharky going to go on a run, no doubt about that. And I just want to make that comment. This is weeks 1 and 2 in college football with all new rosters, transfer portal, coaches, new conference alignments, scheduling. It's really like capping a new sport. So we're not here to make any excuses. We're just always telling the truth as to what's going on. So we appreciate you guys immensely in the chat. We're trying to build the chat as we go. And we have a guy saying, I've been losing every week for 3 years. That is a beautiful lie. And we hope our guy finds a nice beverage and a smile on a Friday night. But there's always people that want to lie. We will not lie. We will tell you the truth. It is Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave or get out of the water. That's it for this one. 43 minutes in the books. A fine conversation. 10 top plays, 6 for me. Oregon first half -9.5. A&M first half in Gainesville -2.5. Pitt at home in Acrisure Field first half as well +0.5, and the game over 61.5. And ECU in the first half +0.5. Final play for me, Western Kentucky, the nightcap on the road in Conference USA Ball -7. The Gun at noon, Tulsa +20.5, now +18.5. 4 o'clock collaboration, ECU at home. Let's get this dub. Moneyline +100. Tulane +14. Indiana -2.5, -3 now. 43 minutes in the books. We will be back live Sunday at 10 a.m. for the fire in the morning we love to bring. It's fire at night. It's fire in the morning. It is indefinite, and we love to bring it to you guys. Guns Picks, a pleasure. Close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into the chat, the Spank show, when he goes 0-3 on a fucking Saturday. But hey, I digress, everybody. We have fun. I love the good stuff. I love the positivity, but I also love the negativity. As long as you're funny, man, you can hate on me, get into my DMs. I keep all the good ones. But that is going to do it here for the Knowledge for College show. Of course, we will be back on Sunday with the Extra Points NFL show with the Shark, the Gun, and the Odds. So join us for that. The hottest plays on the planet, the sharpest information on the planet. We break down every single game in the NFL. That is the way you need to be at 10 a.m. East. So hopefully you can join us for that. And also like and subscribe to both of our channels, the Gunsmith channel and Sharky Waters Nation. And make sure you support us on X at Gunspicks and at Shark in Sports 88. And that is going to do it for the show. Till next time, let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate them all. And as always, let's keep dancing. Bang.